Okay, so today I have another conversation to share with everyone. This time is with a Canadian who's been living in Boston and now has plans to move back to Canada. Just like our story, things have become just a little bit too unpredictable for him. His decision started with his job, but the unrest in the United States is what really sealed the deal. And I know a lot of you watching right now might be Canadians living in the US, so this is definitely a discussion you might want to hear. Now, for today's backdrop, this one's for my mom. She and my dad are on their very first East Coast trip. They're visiting Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI at the moment. And the way to describe it, they couldn't be happier with their experience. So thanks for sending this over, Mom. Before I get into it, if you enjoy this video or find any value from what I'm doing here, hit that subscribe button. We're trying our best to build the Guard the Leaf community, and every voice helps to get the message out. And if you have a story to share, whether you're from Canada, the US, or anywhere else, reach out to me. I'd love to jump on a Zoom call with you and bring your perspective into the community. All right, let's get started with my call with someone I'll just refer to as C, as in Charlie. Thank you very much for joining me, and I appreciate you sending me an email wanting to jump onto my channel. And your story reminds me a lot of ours, interview that I did of the Canadian citizen, and you're also a Canadian as well. So maybe if you can give us a basic introduction and tell us your situation that you're in right now.
Yeah, awesome. I'm from Winnipeg in Manitoba. I'm a scientist. I'm a chemist. I was working in the biotech industry in Winnipeg for 3 years. Ended up coming down to the US, specifically in Boston right now, because that's where biotech is the hub. I've been here almost 2 years now. The city's awesome. The people here are pretty friendly. It's a really nice city to be in. It's actually really safe. It's one of the more safe large cities in the US. So
Right.
Came down for job opportunities.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about offline is that during your years there in the US, you noticed a lack of apathy from the Americans. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and share your thoughts on that with the community?
Yeah, kind of listening to your conversation with R from Arizona and they being in what describes the purple state where you have Republicans and Democrats, and they were surprised how some or lots of Americans tend not to pay attention or are apathetic or indifferent to politics and even world events.
Right.
And they were kind of curious about, well, I wonder if this exists in a deep blue state, and I have to say, like, in my experience, it is still here too. It may not be the same level, but I've for the past couple of years worked with lots of scientists because that's what my job is. It's surprising that even scientists and in a deeply blue state that you still see the same indifference. You still see, I call it apathy. I've mentioned to a few people here, and they're like, that's a good way of describing it. It's not that people don't care or don't want certain things to happen. It's just people here seem to, at least in my experience, not pay attention to world events. An example I can personally give is one of the scientists, PhD scientists working in the labs that we're working in the break room, I was talking to her about what was going on. And she's like, what do you mean Canada and the US are in a trade war? And, this was like a couple of months into the tariffs starting and after the 51st rhetoric. And it wasn't just the one person. There was, almost everyone at my job hadn't paid attention to it or even knowing it was going on. So to me, was really surprising. I was like, as a Canadian who maybe am used to a lot more openness with, at least in my experience, Canadians tend to talk about politics, maybe not to a crazy amount, but people are aware in Canada of what's going on, at least to some extent.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you mention that their reasoning is for the tariffs, is it because their media doesn't tell them, or they just choose to ignore that? We're actually pissed off because of the 51st rhetoric?
I think from what I've experienced, most of them think it is the tariffs. And even then, some people, like I said, that some of the people that I was talking to here, even some of my friends in the US, I've had friends in the US for years, gaming online with some of my friends for a couple of decades. A couple of people here I've known for 10, 15 years, just didn't even know what was going on. And it genuinely shocked me that there is just this kind of whole big event happening that these people missed. And, it's with the neighbors supposed to be the best friends of the world, right?
Yeah, because I think when I first started this channel, I was just as flabbergasted as you, right? How do these guys not know that we're pissed off really about the 51st state rhetoric and annexation, right? But as I started doing more reports, and especially now, this is just my opinion, but they really only know what their media is going to tell them. And the media really isn't emphasizing that Canadians are boycotting specifically, for the 51st rhetoric, right? And that's a huge reason to omit. So
Absolutely. And I mean, you look at the biggest media, like Fox News and stuff, they're not going to report on these kinds of things. So it's tough.
So being in Boston, one of the bluest states in the US, do you feel like the political tension is, how do I say it? Do you find that there is a lot of political tension in the workplace or within your friends within the US, like, Democrats versus Republicans or?
Yes and no. With it being so deeply blue, there are people protesting on bridges with signs against the Trump administration. That's very kind of Bostonian, kind of the first revolutionary kind of thing. But other than like political tensions and stuff at work and like just everyday conversations, it kind of goes back to what I said before. There's still an apathy. Our workplace is a little bit different. It's almost all scientists at my job. And generally speaking, scientists tend to lean more towards Democrats here. So it was kind of tense when Trump won the election. There was a lot of uncertainty with that, but it wasn't kind of like too crazy when that happened. But as events came on, like I said, there's been protesters. We've had Dropkick Murphys as a Boston band. They ended up playing a massive gig outside in Boston as a resistance kind of piece.
Mm-hmm.
There have been massive protests here, but
still
is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just realized you're the first person I've interviewed that has actually been in the deep blue state because everyone else I've interviewed is actually in either in a red state or a purple state or in an environment where it's pro-Trump, whereas now there actually is a resistance, right? So I just realized that.
Yeah.
So, well, it's good to hear. I mean, at least the viewers can know that in the heavy blue areas, there is still a big resistance going on. So. Okay, so since you arrived during Biden's presidency, even though you're in a blue state, have you noticed any major differences in the area that you're in, besides the protest, I guess?
Other than like people holding up signs and protesting this administration, honestly, nothing really has changed too much other than even at my work, where, like I said, it's all scientists.
Yeah.
When the Trump administration kind of got into power, it was a sad day when that happened to us because, like I said, scientists leaning towards more Democrats. There was definitely a heavy gloom, but other than that, there hasn't really been anything different.
I guess that's partly because you're in Boston, right? So, I mean, if you're in a blue area, I guess everything's relatively the same, which kind of leads me into my next question is like, because you're a Canadian, have they treated you any differently or how has it been since like, when Biden was in office versus now being a Canadian in Boston?
So that's actually kind of a really interesting question because, when I got here, the building we're in, we actually share it with another company. So when I came in, they saw a new employee at the company I work at. So some of the people that don't work at our company were like, talking to me. I'm telling them where I'm from. Once they find out I'm Canadian, honestly, just like it's positive. People are like, oh, that's super cool. Like, let's talk about that. Like, that's, as Canadians, we have this free pass almost as we are kind of the golden child. We're peacekeepers. We're very friendly. We're overly apologetic, and like all of those things are to an extent true. It's been good just because it is like, yeah, people treat Canadians pretty well down here from my experience. It's been interesting since all of this has been going on. As I've seen, Trump's kind of, levy tariffs against Canada, the 51st state. Most of the people that I've met and work with that are Americans haven't really said too much. You get the yeah, this kind of sucks, nothing crazy. Mm-hmm. Something I have noticed though, and I'm glad this came up, is that we're a really small company. There's less than 30 of us. there are other people not from the US here. One of our scientists I work with, he's from Nigeria. Well, our CEO was actually born in Eastern Europe. I have found that those two have been more understanding of how this is playing out as like, yeah, this country's attacking your home in verbally and mocking it and like causing our citizens to lose jobs. So it's been interesting that I find a lot more support to people who weren't born here
Yeah.
in terms of that.
Yeah. It's not surprising, but it's also sad at the same time, in my opinion, because Canada has the support from everywhere else around the world, and everywhere else around the world understands that, hey, when you threaten a country or when you bully a country, that's not right. But when it comes from everyday US citizens, and I'm not generalizing everybody, but the everyday citizen that doesn't really see what's happening outside the border or how this is still just straight up bullying to another country, right? So that's why I say it's not surprising, but it's also sad that many US citizens, just regular everyday, don't see it, right?
It's yeah, and like kind of it elevates it, like I said, when the people who aren't born in this country, who are also here on visas, are the ones who are saying, "Hey, this sucks." Like we understand this, versus the people of this country that, and it's not the people. It's really not. It's this administration. It's a weird blindness. I feel like at least many Americans I have right. It doesn't happen outside our borders, so it kind of is invisible in a
Yeah.
sense.
And it kind of aligns with what R said when he's in Arizona, and he did mention that. I recall he said one of his good friends, when they were talking about, or when he was talking about how ICE was gathering up people and someone that he might have known, right? And
Yeah.
the lack of empathy or even support was just kind of astounding to him, right? And
Yeah.
there is millions of US citizens that are in support. They are aware. I mean, most of them are in my channel watching my videos. But as R said, it is a smaller minority, and
It
the
is.
rest of the general population. I don't want to. I mean, it might sound bad to say it, but the rest of the population just seems to not give a shit, right? And obviously, we know the right doesn't give a shit, but I
Yeah.
think the rest is just a little bit lack of awareness of what is actually happening here.
I think it's definitely a split of, obviously you have definitely a lot of the Republicans not giving a shit.
Mhm.
I think it's also just like maybe part of them are also like they just don't understand or they're just not aware because, like we said before, the media here is not great.
Mhm.
When you get your fix of news for the day from one source, yeah, I think it biases you towards one thought, right? It's either a lack of understanding or not giving a shit. And I think a lot of people just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Or even how much the US and Canada have this history of even trade, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people knew we sent as much potash to the US as we did. There's been so many random kind of facts even I've learned about what trade agreements we have between the US
Mhm.
and Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things on that too, because I'm actually waiting for someone to get back to me, but there was a report that I did previously. Obviously, what actually happened was the media construed her message and basically made it seem like it was all about the tariff. So it's interesting because the person actually reached out to me, and we actually had some viewers reach out to her as well, saying, "Hey, what you said on the report was not true. It was not just about the tariffs. It's actually about the 51st state and everything else." And interesting enough, like when the person actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, I apologize and everything, and I actually support Canada. I know it's about the 51st state. I don't agree with it. I didn't vote for this." And the media actually completely cut out this part of the interview. So, I'm not critical as I am with other reports, right? But after I learned that, I realized heavily that what is being shown in the media is censoring, basically, right? And
Heavily edited.
Yep, it's heavily edited because she did mention to me via email that she did mention a whole bunch of other stuff, and it was actually purposely cut out to, serve the narrative of the news station, right? So I apologized to her, And I said, I'm actually just waiting for her to get back to me, and I'm going to put it into a future video, or it might be in a video already before this one. But regardless of
Mhm.
that, I told her, I'm going to help you to clear your name, and because what the news service or news station did to you is a complete disservice to your reputation, right? So obviously, I understand that. Yeah, the U.S. media has their stories they have to do, and they have things that are prioritized, meaning that obviously they need to prioritize the reason being the tariffs and not the 51st state, right? But for this person specifically, it totally construed what she was actually said in the interview, right? So, but yeah, no, I brought that up because you did mention about how people around you are focusing so much on the tariffs when in fact it's not, but they only know what they're being told, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's only part of the story, right? It's the
Yeah,
whole package that which is the problem.
yeah, exactly. So you mentioned offline. I mean, you've decided to move back to Canada, and aside from the job changes and things like that, what is the main reason, I guess, to move back to Canada?
So yeah, like this is an interesting question for me. Definitely job satisfaction. A lot has changed since I've been here at the company. I'm not super happy anymore at it. Um, but on top of that, it's a lot of this, a lot of these events that have happened between the U.S. and Canada, for one, has kind of made me realize how much I miss Canada, and also how much I feel like how lucky I am to be a Canadian.
Right.
So like if I had to put a percentage on it, and this, it's probably 60% of it is I'm just really unhappy where I am right now. Like I said, things change and like that happens all the time. That's fine.
Right.
Hopping jobs just happen. I'd say 40% is, 30 of the remaining 40% is the political climate that's happening right now.
Mhm.
Like R said in your other video, it is a little bit different being in a blue state, especially a deeply blue state. People will have your back here.
Yeah.
There, you don't get the we have ice raids here. It does happen. I mean, actually, one of the first big stories that broke was that Turkish PhD student that got pulled from Tufts in an
Mhm.
ice raid, right?
Mhm.
That's literally down the street that I work, right?
Wow.
I am close to that building. Um, so, there's other reasons I want to go back. My mom died while I was in the US
Mhm.
last year. My dad's health is not great, so I, kind of being closer to him. I miss my friends, and like Canadians are gonna laugh at me for saying this. I miss Winnipeg, like I really do.
Yeah.
Um, it's yeah, no one ever says that, but like you know, I do miss living in Canada. There are so it right now it's a 60-40 split.
Right.
That has changed over time since I've been here as things have developed. That number keeps getting pushed down. There is more and more reason for me not to be here for what's going on.
Right.
If it wasn't the other factors, I think at some point I would have left anyway before my visa ended,
Right.
just because of the climate.
Hmm. I just want to say I'm sorry to hear about your mom, and I know it must be tough to be away when family members die. And I'm just wanted to send my condolences on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happened at the end of the Biden administration, so my work gave me a month off,
Hmm.
so I was able to take all of December and a little bit of January off. So as Trump got sworn into the office, I came back.
Right.
So I had the time to like go back and hang out with my brother and my dad.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah. Well, I can totally understand the reason to be closer back to family now and friends
yep,
at home in Canada. I'm just curious. You're in the U.S. right now on a work visa. Is it that H-1B visa, or
yeah. So
because I mean,
it's
there's a lot of
not.
news about that right now, right? So
Yes, it's so I'm on a TN visa.
TN.
So
Okay.
this stems from NAFTA, right?
Yeah.
And it extended into Kuzma or USMCA for the Americans. It was a visa created back when NAFTA was created that recognized that each country, Canada, Mexico, has valuable skilled workers in certain areas. There's about a list of like 60, 65 professions on this list
Hmm.
that can go apply for a TN visa. When I say apply, you get a job offer from the US. You literally go down to the border, whether it's at a pre-clearance airport that has the officers there or a land border. You bring this little package of your job offer, your passport, your degrees from where you went to school to prove that you have the skill set, and honestly, not much else. And they say yes or no, you get to go in, right?
Right.
My visa is literally a stamp in my passport.
Right.
So that's all it was. Obviously, it's a mechanism of making sure that these highly skilled scientists, engineers, there's a bunch of other things on there too, and even like mechanical power engineers, these other very high valuable skilled laborers or scientists. With the H-1B visa, I could have applied for it. It wouldn't have gotten me anything other than it'd be a different visa class. TNs tend to be more temporary. H-1Bs tend to be an implication that you're going to try to set up citizenship at some point.
Right.
They both last 3 years, have to be renewed. H-1Bs, I don't actually know how many times you can renew before they say no. TNs are indefinite. I could keep going for 27 years if I really wanted to.
Right.
Just every 3 years, you have to get it renewed.
Right. Understand. Well, I guess to close this off, for our viewers that are primarily Canadian who may be in the same situation as you, do you have any words of advice for them that, if they're thinking of moving back to Canada, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely think it through. It'll be dependent on your personal situation. For me, it's a tough choice. Like I'm less happy with my job, so there's also that factor. But I also very much miss the things I had back in Canada. I miss friends and family. So like the overall move to me is makes sense. It is going to be very hard financially. Like I said before, it's the job opportunities and the pay in the US especially for scientists. And I'm going to say this as a scientist. It is orders of magnitude better than what Canada currently has. That could change, and I hope it does change. But the hit to my financial situation will be large. It's, going back to Manitoba, I might be able to get a job that pays $60,000 a year. From what I'm making now, it's about $100,000 pay cut.
Right.
So if you can make it and make it work, I would say, yeah, being in the U.S. is kind of scary right now. And this is even being in a very deep blue state that supports people being here, helping the country. And if anyone's thinking of coming down here from Canada, I would highly advise against it, especially with the visas. Like you mentioned, the H-1Bs. Companies aren't going to want to pay $100,000. I'm going to flat out say that it is not worth it at that point. And with CUSMA going up for agreement next year, we don't even know if the TNs are going to be around.
Right.
Because the visas are reliant on that agreement still existing.
So that means that anyone with does that mean that anyone with a TN visa could potentially be at risk as well?
I think so. We don't know if trade talks fall apart for CUSMA. I'm pretty optimistic most of the time. This is one of the things I don't think this administration wants wants CUSMA to continue.
Right.
Because it just means more things they can tariff, right? If CUSMA goes away, all of those products, all of those materials, all of those services under CUSMA are now tariffable. And, we've seen that they don't want to have agreements in good faith. That's just kind of a problem. So I would be prone to say, do not come down to the US if you're looking for a job, especially in sciences. I would say, look at UK. There's something I found out, which I wish I knew about years ago. There's a youth mobility program between Canada and the UK. If you're under 35, you can apply for a visa to move between the two countries. And that gives you a work visa. There's agreements with other countries with Canada to have mobility of skilled people. I would look otherwise other than the US.
Have you thought about moving to a different country? Or are you set on coming back to Canada?
I have a plan for what I want to do when I come back to Canada. But I have applied to jobs while I was here, looking at specifically Europe, specifically English speaking countries, Ireland, any of the UK countries. It's tough being an international applier for jobs. Something I've also noticed, even before most of this crazy stuff was going down, I was looking for a different job even, or just seeing what's out there. Companies more and more now in the US aren't accepting people who need visa support. It's the number of jobs I've seen that have, say, only open to US and Puerto Rico residents has climbed significantly, right? And these are big companies that normally would hire international. I've had friends when I first came down here looking to apply for jobs. And when this administration came in, they even noticed that the amount of applications that were allowing international workers have gone down significantly. So it's going to be hard coming down here, I think, for one, but I would say avoid it. It's tough.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. I mean, you've mentioned that your workplace situation is a big factor, right? But if you were to find another job and the workplace was good, would you still stay in the US?
I think there's a time limit on that.
Yeah.
For me, it also is, like I said earlier, it is becoming a larger factor every month with the things this administration is doing. I don't think they could do many more things to make me stay at this point, right? If another massive event happened between U.S. and Canada that the U.S. started, I'd probably leave anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, it's that balance is becoming. Even if I had a job that I still enjoyed a lot, I'd probably leave anyway because it is becoming scary to be here.
Yeah, it's getting unpredictable. Every day there's something coming out of the U.S. and it's whether it's
you just never know.
Yeah, and
it's it's a safer country in terms of doesn't matter your political views, doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter anything. Canadians tend to be a lot friendlier, and it's just like you don't want to be picked up from government agents for no reason. That alone is scary.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on this question. Since Trump came into office, have you come back to Canada to visit and then had to deal with CBP at the border at all? Or have you been in the US?
So I haven't. Like I said, I've purposely stayed. Like I said, when I came back last year at the end of Christmas, Trump took office. It was 26th of January or something. Mm-hmm. Is whenever that happened. I came back on the 10th. So he was elected already, but not switched over administrations. I have traveled within the U.S. using my Canada passport, but I was okay with that because you don't go up against CBP, right? You're not going against the border guards. You're not going against we're going to search your cell phone. Yeah. We're not going to ask you, what do you think of this? I went to Colorado to see a friend. Mm-hmm. Here's my passport. Okay, it's valid. Just go, right? Yeah. I don't have to cross any borders. I didn't have to do anything. I'll just get on the plane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's...
So you haven't left the country since Trump came in the office, I guess, right?
I have not.
Yeah. That's probably a safer way to go.
It was. I mean, it was a small chance at the start that something bad would have happened. Even my company did kind of ask a law firm to kind of help go through the TN process because they had never done it before to get a Canadian over. That law office they had asked about because what was going on. The law office said don't cross the border. You know, I saw reports of immigration lawyers on both sides saying don't cross the border at this time. We don't know what people are getting picked up on. Obviously, there's been Canadians detained. There's been other international travelers with no criminal records being detained. It's just better not to take the risk. And my livelihood depended on me still having a job here. So
right, and not being detained.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks very much for joining me. Is there any last things you would like to let the audience know?
If you're Canadian, we're lucky that we're Canadian. I think something like I said, it's something that I've come to appreciate a lot more than maybe I originally thought. The U.S. is a great place for opportunity, or at least it was. Maybe it'll get back there at some point. And like I said, especially for scientists or engineers or those skills that Canada seems to be lacking in places where we can apply ourselves. It is a scary place right now, and just be safe if you're going to try to come down here. But, and also keep up the boycotts. It is amazing to see the country come together to say, no, we are not purchasing anything. We are not going to take this, and we will spend our money within our own country. Yeah. So that is amazing. I mean, I've been to 7 of the 10 provinces. It's amazing. We have a beautiful country, right? Yes, the U.S. is also beautiful, but I think a lot of Canadians need to visit more of the provinces, right? I've been to Halifax. I loved Halifax. I've been to Vancouver. Vancouver is an awesome city. I've been to Toronto and I've been to Regina. I've lived in Alberta for 3 years, part of my life as well. So we have this beautiful country. It doesn't just exist in the U.S. Mm-hmm. visit everywhere you can, even if it's like local provincial stuff. Go to a small town. Go to another city close by. Spend money there. We have an amazing country. We really do.
Hmm. Yeah, my parents are actually on an Eastern Canada trip at the moment, so they're in Halifax now and
Awesome.
sending me pictures. Because before all of this happened, my parents would travel to the U.S. quite a bit, so they'd either go to Hawaii or Palm Springs or somewhere warm,
Yep.
I guess, right? But this year, they decided, let's travel Canada because they've actually never been past anywhere east of Alberta, so this is their
Yeah.
first time. And I'll be honest, I mean, I'm kind of guilty of that as well. I've been to BC, Alberta, and just Toronto for work, right? But I haven't really explored the rest of Canada. But I definitely need to
And
get out
I
as well.
think that's a common Canadian experience too, right? We don't
Yeah.
really leave our provinces unless we have to. And,
Yeah.
you know, we have this massive country that's gorgeous. Go visit
Yeah.
the territories. I do plan on going to the territories at some point. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of want to fill out the 10 of the 10 provinces, the 3 out of the 3 territories. Like,
Yeah.
now is the time.
And we still want to travel. We might as well travel through our own country.
Or
Yeah.
go to Europe, or go to Asia, go to,
Mhm.
any other place that is not the US that accepts us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing too. I've been trying to promote in my channel, like explore our own country, but also explore
Yes.
our allied nations that are supporting us too, right? So,
Yeah.
next year I'll be going to Australia, mainly for a golf
Awesome.
trip, and we're going to be going to Gold Coast as well as Surfers Paradise, think that's what to call it, but mainly for a golf trip and visiting a friend down there. So, I'm happy to support Australia and spend my money there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and from what I understand from the channel, Australians are very supportive of us.
Oh, for sure. We got a
So,
lot of Australians, New Zealanders, many from all over Europe, and even South Africa as well. I mean, all over the world, right? So that's why I try to
yeah,
make sure that, we can support Canada, but also support our allies as well.
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks very much, C. This has been a very informative talk, and it's definitely different than the other interviews because the interviews that I've done in the past, primarily they've been in red states. But even in a deep blue state, there are still going to be things that are going to worry you. And like C mentioned, things are getting a little bit too dicey for him. So he's deciding to, come back home. So, but thanks very much, C. And, let me know how it goes. And, maybe we can jump back on a call again once you're safely back in Canada.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks very much for meeting me.
Same.
All right. Thank you.